Hi guys, Ross here and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make this colourful text animation in Adobe Photoshop. So let's jump straight into the video and I'll show you how it's done. So I'm going to start off with going up to File, New, and creating a 1280 by 720 document. I'm going to keep the resolution at 72 and the colour mode at RGB colour with a white background. I'm then going to hit Create to open our new document. I'm going to press T on the keyboard to bring up my text tool and I'm just going to type in colour. Of course, you can type in anything you want depending on the project you're working on, but I'm just going to be using this word for the tutorial's sake. Using the Move tool, I'm going to select my text layer and my background layer, and use the alignment tools at the top to center my piece of text. So the first step you're going to want to do is create a new layer, and this layer is going to be filled with the random shapes we make to animate our text. So I'm just going to press P on the keyboard to grab my pen tool, and I'm just going to make a bunch of random shapes scattered throughout the text. There doesn't have to be any structure to this, I just try to evenly space it out throughout the text. So I'm just going to repeat this until I have a fair amount of objects covering my piece of text. So just like that should do. Perfect. Now we're going to press escape so that not one subpath is selected but all of the paths are selected, and then we can right click, fill path, and hit OK. We can then right click and press delete path, and we're then going to right click on this new layer we've made and press blending options. We're then going to tick color overlay, and I'm going to leave it at this yellow orangey kind of color. I'm going to then hit OK. We're going to repeat this twice so we have 3 sets of different shapes. So I'm going to press new layer, grab the pen tool again, and this time I'm going to make curved paths. So I'm going to make kind of like warped circle shapes, I guess you could say. So again, there's not really any structure to this, just randomly placing it around the text. All I try to do is make sure they're kind of evenly distributed throughout the text, but of course that's completely up to you. It's all about personal preference and the kind of look you want. So I'm just going to keep doing this for a minute. I think that's actually okay like that. I might just pop a small one in here quickly. There we go, perfect. So again, I press escape so that not just this newest path is selected, but all of them are selected. I'm then going to right click, fill path, and hit OK again. You can then press either escape or right click and delete path. Again, I'm going to come up to the blending options, and this time I'm going to go for more of a reddish kind of colour, so maybe something like that would do. Perfect. And then one last time I'm going to create a new layer and create some more shapes. So I'm probably going to go with the circles again for this, maybe make them a bit wider so they're more like kind of distorted rectangles. And there isn't really any key trick to doing this, it's just all about personal preference and where you can envision the colours coming in on your text. So I'm just going to do this, just like so. Might just put one up here, just a really small one. There we go, perfect. So again, escape, right click, fill path, and OK. Right click, delete path. I'm then going to right click and come up to blending options, and I'm going to change this to a, let's see, there we go, like a greenish kind of colour like that. Hit OK, and now what we want is the shapes to only be seen or only be shown within the text. So to do that, we're going to create masks. So how we do this is if we select layer 1 for example, and if I hold command, this would be control on PC, and click the T on our text layer, that's going to create a selection of our text. We can then come down, whilst making sure we have layer 1 selected still, and press this little button next to the effects icon to the right, and that's going to create a layer mask. So I'm just going to hit that, and as you can see, if I just hide the other layers, it's only showing the shapes within the text. We're then going to repeat this step for layer 2 and 3. So whilst having layer 2 selected, hold command on the keyboard, press the T icon on our text layer, and hit layer mask. And then finally repeat this for layer 3. Perfect. So now we have a bunch of colours and shapes within our text, and we can now start to animate this. So I've already got a timeline at the bottom, but if you don't, just come up to Window, Workspace, and make sure Motion is ticked. And if that still doesn't bring up a timeline, come down to Window, and at the bottom you can tick Timeline. Perfect. So now we can start to animate this. So if we just hit Create Frame Animation, and now we have one frame. So for the first frame we actually don't want any of the shapes to be shown. So I'm going to untick all of our layers, or all of our shape layers, and there we have our blank text. We can then come up to the top right of our timeline window where the 4 lines are and press New Frame. We also want to make sure that New Layers Visible in All Frames is unchecked, and Create New Layer for each new frame is ticked. Otherwise, when we move the position of these shapes, it's going to transfer that position across to all of our frames, and then there's going to be no animation at all. So now we want to bring our shapes back into our animation. So we're just going to tick the eyes again so they're visible, but we don't want them to come in like that straight away. We want them to fade in slowly, or kind of move in slowly onto our text. But first of all, make sure you have unlinked the layer mask to the actual object. So we can simply do that by pressing the link on all of our layers, and what that allows us to do is move the object around, but whilst keeping the layer mask in place. So Command T, Control T if you're on PC, and we're just going to move the green one up to the top right, and actually just to help me out I'm going to rename these layers. So this one's green, this one is red, and then we have yellow. So we're going to do this with the red and yellow layers as well. So I'm going to move the red out to the left, and then move the yellow down below. Perfect. So now we're on the second layer, we're actually going to move all these back in just a little bit. So I just want a little bit of the yellow showing there, and then a little bit of the red showing in the top left a bit, just like that. Let's see, there we go, that's a good point. And then the green coming in from the top right. Perfect. So that's going to be our second frame. So now if we flip between the two frames, we can see it goes from just the regular piece of text to the shape starting to come in. Now before you continue with your animation, it's key to note that on your shape layers, propagate frame 1 is unchecked. Otherwise this is going to duplicate any movement that you make across all the frames, and therefore there will be no change in position. So now we're going to continue with this animation. So if we press on the 4 lines again in the top right of our timeline window and press New Frame, and we can start to bring these shapes into our text. Make sure you have the actual object selected and not the mask, otherwise you're going to move the mask around and that is not going to be ideal. So make sure we got the object selected. We're just going to bring the green in a bit more like that. Again with the red and yellow layers. And essentially you're just going to rinse and repeat this. So again, come up, New Frame, and we're just going to move them in a bit. And you're just going to keep doing this until you're happy. So depending on the style of animation you want, you could create very little movements over a lot of frames, or as I'm doing, creating more drastic movements over fewer frames. It just depends on the style of animation and the look you're going for. So I'm going to keep doing this until I'm happy with it, and then I'll come back to you afterwards. And actually towards the end of the animation you want to start moving the colours back out, so there's a smooth end to the animation, because actually what we're going to do is loop this animation, so you want the colours to come in, then back out, and then out, then back in, etc. So I'm going to start moving these back out of the text now. Well, actually I might have the red go up there and the yellow come back down. So again, this is a fairly short animation. I've only got 13 frames at the moment. But it's just up to you how smooth you want it. So one more frame I reckon, and we'll have our text cleared. So just going to move these back out. So there goes the green. And there goes the red again. Make sure you got the object selected. Perfect. Now, if you come down to the bottom left where it says once, I'm actually going to click on the drop down arrow and change that to forever. So that means if when we go back to one frame, so I've just selected the first frame, and we press play, it's going to loop that animation forever and ever, like a GIF would. So we're just going to press play, and there you go, there's our animation. So we can kind of see all the colours coming back in then going back out. So that's looking quite good. So again, you can create this to any style you want. As you can see in the example one I used, it had a much different look to it. They were kind of coming in from the side as opposed to coming in from the top and bottom. So we're just going to come out to this one, and I'm fairly happy with this. Now we're going to export this as a GIF. So if you come up to File, Export, Save for Web, this will come up. Make sure you have GIF selected, and then I've got colours set to 256. Then we're just going to press Save, and I'm going to save this as Colour Effect. So if we hit enter on that, that's now saved that, and if I come into my Finder, Desktop, and I select that, you can see it previewing in our little preview box. If you wanted to export this animation as a video as opposed to a GIF, it's fairly simple, but first you got to figure out how many times you want the animation to loop, because as opposed to a GIF, a video can't loop forever. So if we just select all of our frames by holding Shift, selecting the first frame and then selecting the last frame, pressing the 4 lines, pressing copy frames, pressing the 4 lines again and then pressing paste frames and paste after selection, we now have 2 loops of that animation. So if we just press play, we can have a look at that now. There we go. So let's say we're happy with that. We simply go up to File, Export, and Render Video. And there we can choose the name of it, select where we want it to export to, as well as the format, etc. And simply press render when you're done. So thanks for watching, guys, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and comment in the comment section down below if you have any ideas for future tutorials. And thanks for watching. I will catch you in the next video.